All right, all right. All right, everyone. So I'm super excited. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. We are here with Canopy Management and one of the co-founders, Brian Johnson. Brian, hey, Brian. He is in beautiful New Braunfels, Texas. I know we have a couple people from Texas, but actually grew up in my home state. So I'm very excited about that. Not a lot of people are from Oregon. I was shocked. I was like,
Yes,
wait,
that is
what?
true. Yeah.
Yeah. And but Brian is more importantly, what he's here to talk to you guys about is Amazon and the benefits of it. They run massive accounts, y'all, like massive accounts. I think you said you're responsible for over 2 billion in sales in Amazon.
Well, I don't want to. I kind of want to clarify that, because
Okay.
that's obviously that's a really big number. Since we launched about 4.5 years ago, yes, we've done about a little over 2.2 billion in managed sales on Amazon. So I don't want somebody to think it's like, oh wow, you do that every single week. No, that's cumulative. We do probably 400 to 500 million a year in sales, and so cumulatively it does add up pretty fast. So in that vein, I like to say is that I sure hope I've got my 10,000 hours in by now because I've been doing this a long time.
That's funny. And Brian, that you guys work with like major brands that we've seen, like Goli Vitamins, Keranique, like, but you also work with startups as well.
Yeah, for sure. We definitely have developed that. As we've grown as an agency, that was one of the areas that we saw way too many brands that were being forced, especially as a result of COVID, being forced out of some of the brick and mortar retail stores. And they're like, well, what do we do? We need to focus on e-commerce. And there's a lot of reasons to do Amazon, and there's a lot of reasons not to. And I actually am going to cover a bunch of those. But way too many brands were like going, it's like, oh my gosh, like how do we don't want to be on Amazon, but we kind of have to be. We have to expand. We have to continue to grow, and we're losing some of our other traditional channels that we relied on previously. And so we, as a agency, we decided like, okay, we have to, for those brands who have some kind of an established product off of Amazon, we have developed a phenomenal track record for those who started on Amazon and those who have had success off Amazon and then opened up Amazon as a sales channel, because that's what it is. I will say I will shy away from those who are like going, I've got a product idea and it'll be my first one ever and I want to come to market. Can you help us? No. No. There's plenty of, I've in my career, I've done a lot I've developed a lot of things that were missing in the community. So I'm proud of those. First software, first, full advertising and marketing training course for Amazon, all these things. So, but now there's so many successful sellers and teachers out in the community that quite frankly is for anybody who is in startup. Now, obviously start with Melody, but on the Amazon space there's so much free material. And then if you want to, you can upgrade to pay material. But there's some phenomenal authors that I can recommend to you who have free, YouTube content that you could spend the next month just going through, and you could just absorb everything that you want to. Or as I usually recommend is find somebody in your family or a VA or somebody on your staff who wants to do that so that you don't have to.
Smart. That's smart. Okay, so let's jump in because we started a little bit late. I want to hear you guys. So tonight is a little bit different. So he's going to talk to us, but he's going to give you a chance to ask all your questions about Amazon, and he wants to answer every single one of them. So we're really fortunate to have them with us tonight. Canopy has been a great partner to us. I definitely send a lot of our clients your way because I'm pretty impressed with the results that you guys get. So why don't we just go ahead and jump into it?
Okay. I do kind of want to bring a little guard down too on this, is that the way that Canopy, because I don't want people to think it's like, oh, okay, there's going to be a pitch. No, there's no pitch. Melody invited me to speak to you and to answer your questions. That's why I'm here. As far as our style at Canopy, if that seems like it is a good fit and you want to have a conversation, then I'll simply just state, you can have a conversation. We'll do a full evaluation as far as do like a market assessment to see, are you a good fit on Amazon, or how do you fit in with your competitors? If you like what we say, cool, we get to work together. If you don't, enjoy.
Yeah.
So that's as hard as I'm going to get as far as a sales pitch. So
Good.
hopefully that didn't disappoint too much. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Just to make sure that everybody can see that opening slide here, how to grow your brand.
Yep, we're good.
And I'm going to trust on your input, Melody, because my chat went and disappeared. So if people are making comments, I don't see it.
Yeah, we got it. Yes.
All right, cool. So let me go ahead and just kind of jump in here. We're going to talk about Amazon. We're going to talk about, and I'm going to be frank with you. I'm going to tell you, here's what's right, here's what's wrong, right? Because I know that there's probably a lot of conceptions, misconceptions, opinions about Amazon, and you're right. Those do exist, and I want to try to address some of the big ones. I'm not going to be able to address everything, but I'm going to address some of the big ones. So I'm going to jump right in, if that's okay. Primarily, I'm going to be talking about as far as like why Amazon. If you are not currently selling on Amazon, why would you even want to drink this poison pill? I'm kidding. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of reasons to do Amazon, but it may not be a good fit for your specific brand, your target audience, your style, and that's okay. But I want at least to make sure that you are up to speed of, okay, is this something I really, I should take a closer look at? Because some of the common things that we look at is, if I go to any channel, including Amazon, it's going to steal sales away from, it's going to cannibalize sales from my own brand, from my own site. It may go so far as to cheapen my brand because it's not as boutique, it's not as exclusive as you can only get it in this one location kind of theme. I understand that kind of marketing, and when it works, and it can work great. You're probably leaving a ton of money on the table because of some of the things I'll talk about as far as like where is the traffic, but that is still obviously going to be a choice for you to make. Amazon takes a cut, as with any sales channel that is going to bring the traffic and essentially set up, provide a platform where the people are the storefront, then yeah, they're going to take their cut. We'll talk about that. And of course, just the learning curve and the mind share and the time consumption. I've been doing this for several years now, and I'm always learning. And so to come into it cold, I understand. If I'm going to go and learn a brand new language for another country, or if I'm going to learn to program on a computer or something like that, that's a lot to take on. So I want to try to give you some ways to make that a little bit easier if it's something that you want to step into. All right, so because I'm going to keep this really short from a presentation standpoint, you're going to be able to snapshot. I'll tell you, you can take a screenshot of each of these screens. You can just reference it later if you want. But I'm intentionally going to keep this short so that we can focus more on the Q&A, because I know you've got them. So start getting the questions ready. I'm going to talk about some of the pros and the cons of Amazon. And in fact, I'm going to open up with the cons, because let's just get it out there, elephant in the room, right? And then I'm going to talk about what my recommendations for you, if you are currently off Amazon and you're coming on to Amazon, how would I recommend that you approach this in order to beat out the competition that is already on Amazon? Okay, you can do it. First and foremost, and Melody, just make sure right now it should be showing a cons slide, right?
Yep, that's what we see.
Awesome. This is the first one that you can screenshot for just kind of reference in the future. But let me talk about some of the big rocks when it comes to the cons. There's a lot of nuances. I'd love to hear, if somebody has a question or a fear, or a perception of Amazon. Would love to be able to talk about that. But the big ones: time and knowledge. What I'll call selling out, right? And we'll get into that, and lack of control. So starting out here with time and knowledge, again, this is kind of like you're learning a new language, right? As you go to any new platform, you learn how to sell to retail stores, to you learn how to open up wholesale distributors, anything like that there's going to be a learning curve. You're going to make mistakes, and it's okay to do so. What that means, though, is that if you currently feel like you're stretched thin and you're overwhelmed with what you have, probably taking on any new channel, while the opportunity could be huge for you, you're not ready for it, right? Either you don't have, you're not offloading from yourself. And there's a lot of different reasons. I don't want to pass judgment on that, but usually it has to do with the owner, the inventor, the founder. I've founded, 4 different companies just in the e-commerce and Amazon space. And I certainly understand when it's your baby, it is really hard to hand off things to other people because frankly, you don't trust them. Here's my recommendation. If you find that you're in that situation, if you've struggled with that, what I found is that if I hand off tasks, because ultimately I would say like, it's just faster for me to do it because if I have to train somebody and I have to create some checklist and blah, 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 then it's just faster for me to do it. And as with any task is let somebody else fail first. In other words, hand it off to them. You can create a video. You can have them, jump on a Zoom meeting and watch over your shoulder as you do it, and let them do the documentation. Come up with a first draft of a checklist. Let them fail 30% of the time and succeed 70% of the time. You just gained where you don't have to do 70% of that task consistently over and over again. And eventually you'll refine that, you'll tweak it so that it's completely off your plate. You can start opening up. I struggled with overwhelm, and I can guarantee you that it is a miserable place to be. But you can get past it if, especially as a founder, is you start letting go. You start trusting in somebody else to just take over, to take over certain things, allow them to fail so that you can then correct it and they'll get it right. There's certain things as far as like the Amazon channel when it comes to, they're going to be time consuming as far as like, okay, how do I set it up? There's a whole big learning curve. Like I don't want to even take it on because there's so many things that I don't know. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of training. There's certainly other people. there's millions and millions of other sellers on Amazon who will gladly give you advice every single day of the week through social media channels. But there's plenty of YouTube material out there. I can point you to a couple of great authors that I like, that I even learn from, that can give you the crash course of where to start. My focus, and I'll throw up a slide here shortly here, just kind of give you my background so that you kind of give a little bit more information as far as like who I am, where I specialize. But I'll tell you, Amazon advertising and marketing, especially things like driving traffic to product listings, increasing engagement and then increasing conversion rate. Those are my specialties. I've gotten really good at that over the years. Some of the concerns, of course, we have in the time and knowledge category could be once I launch and, what's my maintenance and growth? What's my time commitment? What's the knowledge that I need? How do I go up against, maybe if I've got my own D2C site and my biggest problem is I have to drive traffic to my site, which is granted a valid, large problem. But then if I go onto a channel like Amazon, now I'm up against a massive number of competitors. If you truly believe in your brand and you feel it's premium or it's got a unique selling proposition, you feel that there's a lot more people who could love what you have put out there, you are much more likely to come into Amazon with something special than most of the sellers who are private label sellers who started out on Amazon. That gives you a huge competitive advantage. And I'll talk to that here in a couple of slides. The selling out topic from a con standpoint. It's the common things that I hear is, it's like, no, we don't want to cheapen our brand. We don't want to reduce the quality, perception of our brand. But we've certainly seen over the years as the platform has grown, it's gotten the attention, it has gotten massive traction, and I'll talk about that on the next slide. The large brands, the luxury brands have they couldn't ignore it after a while. Now, did they go in with just a partial part of their product line? Yes, because they wanted to test it out, but they certainly had to embrace that. Okay, e-commerce is the direction that we're going, and we want to continue to grow our fan base, and outside of social media, an e-commerce channel like Amazon is going to have the eyeballs, flat out. You already know that getting people to your site, getting it to your products, is the number one biggest challenge that you've got. And then you get to worry about things like quality control and conversion rate optimization and split testing and all these other things, right, from your site. But I understand, as far as it certainly used to be a bigger issue that any e-commerce channel, that especially one as big as Amazon's gotten now, would be perceived as cheapening the brand. I think that has definitely faded over time as bigger brands, more luxury brands, have joined the ranks of Amazon in order to test it out to see if it's a good fit for them. Certainly losing part of your profit if you are running on thin margins. In other words, if you are running below 15 to 18% margins, if you're somewhere in there as far as your net margin, then your business model needs some work. There may be certain reasons. Typically, that's going to be wholesale pricing. That's not going to be retail product pricing. So hopefully you're up north of 50, 60% on your net margin. That's where ideally you'd want to be. To survive on Amazon, I would recommend that you're coming in with probably a 25 to 30% net margin to start with. It's common also for brands to say, "Oh, we don't actually want to, sell anything on Amazon because it'll steal from either from our own sales channel." In other words, it'll cannibalize sales from our own site. Or the last bullet point on selling out there is our established distributors will, frankly, they'll get pissed, right? Because they're like going, "Hey, I'm your exclusive distributor. You can't undercut me." I'm not asking you to undercut on Amazon. In fact, your price parity should be where your pricing is the same, if not even higher, on a sales channel that is non-preferred compared to your own direct-to-consumer site. How you handle your distributors, you obviously need to set some ground rules and some boundaries, because they will take advantage. I've seen this way too many times where they take advantage of the manufacturer saying, like, "Look, I bring, $500,000 of sales a year to you, therefore I can get away with anything." No, you can't, because it's my brand, it's not yours. So I get to control distribution. The way that, and I'll talk about on a couple of slides up here about how to mitigate things like cannibalizing your own sales, right? That's generally what we don't want to do. That's the number one thing that we hear when we take on a brand that doesn't sell on Amazon, but they do great through their own site or through brick and mortar, is we don't want to cannibalize those sales. That can be done. Okay. And I'll talk about that. Lack of control over sales funnel. This is probably one of the biggest ones that I 100% back. And that is, Amazon has a very fixed layout as far as its structure, as far as how it looks on mobile, how it looks on desktop, which it depends on which category, as far as some of the layouts, as far as images, video, text, feature bullet points, additional content you can roll out there, social media that gets integrated in there. Those are available, but they're usually you don't really have any kind of flexibility when it comes to layout or split testing layout, or you're not going to change font colors of a title, these kinds of things. So for that reason, you've got limited split testing. The split testing that is available on Amazon is going to be specific to being able to test your main image, going to be able to split test your title, split test your bullet points, and then what they call your A+ content, which is more of your bigger descriptive content in the listing. There are a number of promotional tactics you can do, special like lightning deals, deal of the day, coupons, temporarily reduced pricing, bundled, virtual bundles where you can bundle a couple of items together for either a discounted price or some kind of a gift item. So there are those kind of features available, but compared to somebody who is really good at dialing in, like say their Shopify site and all the plugins and all the split testing, software and everything, you're not going to have that level of control. There's still a lot you can do, but if you absolutely have to have very granular split testing and layout control and font colors and all these kind of things, you're not going to get that on any e-commerce channel that you don't have control over, that is. Upselling and cross-selling is a little bit limited. Yes, you can advertise your other products. You're going to have not only your product that can show up in the search results on Amazon, as it is primarily a search engine. You can run advertising so that you get more real estate, more placements to show your products and your brand in the search results. You have your own store page that can have things like social media and videos and additional content that you can showcase some of your other related products. You can give multiple options, but generally you're not going to have follow-up offers through Amazon unless you're running ads that you can simply just say like, oh, I'm going to shoot out an email to my customer and I'm going to upsell them with the next thing that I have for them. So Amazon is not great when it comes to building that lifetime value of a shopper. There's ways that you can pull them from Amazon over to your own email list, your own distribution, your own visibility. That some things are you've got to pull it away without letting Amazon know that you're pulling them away. In other words, there's ways that you can do it within their terms of service, but you've got to do it correctly, because if you don't, then they slap your hand. So and that falls into things as far as like customer ownership and communication. Amazon has always been right up front saying like, look, this is our customer. We paid a lot in order to get them to the platform. The fact that you're getting that customer buying your product is because of us. Therefore, we get a percentage. We get 15%, 18% plus any kind of Amazon spending that you do. Plus, if you use our warehouses, there's going to be shipping fees and these kinds of things, right? So the cost can certainly add up. We usually measure that just kind of roughly, and I can talk about that more in the Q&A, is kind of the rule, of thirds. And that is a third to source, a third to sell, and a third to take home profit is pretty typical among brands that sell on Amazon. There's also what they call a 1P model as far as selling your product to Amazon, and then Amazon in turn sells it on their platform. I can guarantee you that's probably not what any of you want to do, because let's put it this way. Amazon doesn't do a great job of selling, of properly optimizing or split testing. They're not doing any of that on their own platform. Should they? Absolutely. But they don't, not in the 1P model. They barely do it with their own products that they sell on Amazon. And yes, you may end up competing with an Amazon brand as well. Communication used to be a lot worse. It actually used to be where you couldn't even email the customer through the platform unless it was related to customer service. Now they're starting to open that up. There's some rules that apply there, but at least they're starting to recognize that, okay, we need to open up a little bit of flexibility so that brands can actually communicate to their shopper. You can also run certain ad types. There's 4 main ad types on Amazon. One of those, it allows you to run ads both on Amazon and off Amazon to not only new shoppers that you're trying to bring to your brand and bring to your products, but also those that have purchased before. Maybe if you're selling a supplement or something that's a consumable. Obviously, if you're probably in the beauty brand, you're going to have a consumable. You want to start running ads. If they bought from you on the platform, 2-3 months ago, you start running ads to say, hey, you know what, it's time to renew, or, why don't you come back out and see our latest and greatest new product that we've launched. So there are some options when it comes to that. All right, so that's cons. Do we have any, Melody, I'm not sure if we've got any questions that are coming in currently specific to this.
I don't know. Does anybody have any questions? You guys, I haven't seen anything come in.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions around the cons? You guys, so we're going to take a lot of questions all night. It doesn't have to be related to what we're talking about. So go ahead and put it in the Q&A button down below, not in the chat, and I'll be able to read it to them. So keep going.
Cool. Okay. Let me just kind of give you a bit of background here, a little station identification, if you will. I was telling you this, Melody, before we started recording here, but for those who are catching the replay, my name is Brian Johnson. I've been in e-commerce for a little over 15 years. I co-founded a number of companies within the e-commerce and Amazon space related to first advertising software, first advertising and marketing training course on Amazon, and then our flagship is our advertising and marketing agency, Canopy Management. And we're very proud of the team that we've built globally, as well as the performance track record that we've done for our clients. And we've grown fast enough in order to slip into the Inc. 500 as far as fastest growing companies, fastest growing agency within the United States. Just, I don't know, like a month ago, we got that. So that was kind of cool. Pat myself on the back, I suppose, but it's simply just because I care a lot about I'm very passionate when it comes to e-commerce and, product positioning and differentiation, conversion rate optimization. I can geek out on this kind of stuff. But I have been fortunate to have helped well over 25,000 brands grow by over $1.5 billion on Amazon through my teaching, coaching, speaking on stage, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. I've put in my 10,000 hours into this space. I love it. There's a reason that I'm here. And I'm glad to help others, shortcut and gain success. It's not a get rich quick, but it is certainly, there's some better practices that can be done out here. So let me jump off of my face here and jump back into some of the pros. This is another one you can screenshot. The big ones, the Amazon, I would say the Amazon has done very well. Instant gratification, a loyal user base, and confidence and security. Now, the instant gratification, of course, is through their warehousing system. They have built up they've essentially educated a large audience of consumers to demand things like same day shipping, overnight shipping, 2-day shipping. And a lot of other companies have had to adapt to come up to Amazon's, what they've trained the consumer to expect now, right? So I want instant gratification. I want this thing in 2 days. Otherwise it's too slow, right? We've become, this is full on first world problem kind of thing. But Amazon does regularly survey their users, and 79%, this year, one of the surveys came back and says 79% of those Amazon shoppers said that free and fast shipping is the primary reason for shopping on Amazon because of that instant gratification. Now, if you have your own 3PL warehouse, for instance, and you're able to provide 7-day, 2-day return, 2-day shipment, awesome. You are meeting that standard of that instant gratification that you've been forced to comply to based off of Amazon. It may not require, I don't know how many of you remember back in the day when it was allow 4 to 8 weeks for shipping. I've seen that probably once in the past year, and I just busted out laughing. I'm like, is this coming from, rural China? Where's it coming from?
Wow, that's crazy.
And as it turns out, it did. And so that's why it did take 4 to 8 weeks. But, certainly in the States, we want it now, right? The loyal user base. Amazon spent years losing money so they could build up their user base. And they did a great job at that. They've made some brilliant moves over the years. Do they do everything right? Of course not. But they have had some pretty brilliant moves in their time that, because as they grew the size of their market, worked better. Things like you might have a loyalty program, those for return shoppers, they get discounts and this kind of stuff. But Amazon just leaned into that heavily with their Prime, US, with their Prime shopper or, Prime member. Currently, Amazon has built up to the point where they're right about 38% of the US e-commerce market. They represent, I think it's roughly 16% of total total consumer product sales in the United States. 16% of that they own. And within the e-commerce space, they own about 37, a little over 37% of that traffic and the sales that come. So they've done a very good job of establishing themselves as the 800-pound gorilla that you have to compete against or play with in order to continue to expand into multi-channel, right? Omni-channel. On average, Amazon averages just on the US Amazon site over 2 billion visits per month. That is unheard of in pretty much any e-commerce D2C site. It just pales in comparison. Now, the difference, of course, is you've got 2 billion visits coming for millions of products versus, you got to compare that to like, well, I've got 10,000 visitors coming per month just to my own beauty brand where I've got them landlocked, right? And so in that case, it's an apples to oranges kind of comparison, but they do have a lot of volume. Of their 253 million buyer accounts on Amazon US, majority of those, I think it's like, 67%, something like that. 153 million of those are Prime shoppers. The difference that makes is the average non-Prime shopper on Amazon spends about $400 to $600 a year on products on Amazon. The average Prime shopper spends about $1,400 per year in spending. And those Prime shoppers, they're averaging a household income of $84,000. Obviously, there's a much bigger spread and there's more affluent shoppers on there as well. As one of the things I will tell you is part of things like COVID and just the cost of retail space. If you go into even a large brick and mortar store, let's say you go into an Ulta, for instance, and let's say they've got 10,000 products. I actually don't know how many products an Ulta would carry, but you go in there and they've got 10,000 products in store. But oftentimes you can't find the one specific one that exists. And so they say, oh, go out to ulta.com and there's 50,000 products because they simply just don't have the real estate. They can't afford the overhead in order to push that many products into a physical space. You can just go and just pick it up right now. So even at the brick and mortar level, they're forcing their customers to shop online. So Amazon is kind of, they call themselves the everything store because you can find just about everything on Amazon. Is it the best one out there? No, that's why we need you and your brand on Amazon because we need to continue to raise the quality of Amazon. And we've seen a lot of success with those brands who are able to differentiate themselves. And I'll get into that next. On Amazon, they can demand a premium price and get it.
That's amazing.
I'll kind of skip over some of these other ones here. Probably one of the biggest ones I want to point out is most e-commerce sites on average run typically a 2 to 5% conversion rate of product in their shopping carts on a D2C site. Amazon overall averages 10 to 15% average conversion rate, depending on the niche, and I can talk more about that in Q&A. That can be as low as, single digit conversion rate, or it can be 60, 70, 80% conversion rate. So it really kind of depends. There's different niches that I could point out in either side of that. The last one here on the pros is confidence and security. They trust Amazon as a platform it's much more likely to be authentic, to have less fraud on it, much more likely their data, their personal data, their credit card information is going to be protected. They've got simple, clear return policies, and they've got a high expectation that what they actually ordered, they're actually going to receive, in part because things like the review program, plenty of images and videos, and they can see people holding the product, using the product, and that gives them more security that they are getting with, that they're going to get the product that they actually ordered. Now, can you do a much better presentation on your own site through your own D2C site? No question. Absolutely. Because of some of the content restrictions that Amazon has, it's going to allow you to post things, but it may not be able to, it's not going to have like, you're probably going to put your video of like, hey, here's the greatest benefits of my product right at the top center of the page, of the product detail page. Amazon, it's going to be a little bit buried. Still there. It's a little bit buried. All right. This will be the last slide that I have, and then we can jump into Q&A. Another screenshot here for you. Here's what I would recommend, just kind of a high level summary. Going from off Amazon to on Amazon. No question, you need to lead with whatever your unique selling proposition is. Whatever differentiates your product, you have got to identify. Knowing who your target audience is, what their pain points are, how you're solving those pain points is absolutely going to give you a competitive advantage on Amazon. The reason I know that is because every single day, because I'm kind of a geek, every single day, I'm either asked to look at a product line and compare it to a product niche, or I'm just out there, hunting around, looking for examples that I can point out to people where they're doing it wrong. And I can guarantee you is that most brands selling on Amazon get the differentiation tactic wrong. They bring in a, as a 3P or as a 3P product, they bring in products that they source from China and maybe copy what was out there. They're emulating success. And essentially what they're doing is everybody's copying each other. Maybe there's some small variations, but there's nobody really, it's very common for a brand to do a very poor job of really showcasing what is in it for me if I own this product, if I use this product. They're not talking to the consumer. They have a bad habit of talking to the search engine, trying to get indexed and ranked and for keywords and that kind of stuff, rather than focusing in on speaking to the target audience in language that compels them to want to know more and to see the value of what you are offering as a product on Amazon. And if you can come in with a product that's not just a copycat of what everybody else is selling, and you can truly differentiate the benefits, maybe the features of your product, you can get a higher conversion rate, you can demand a higher price point on Amazon than what your competitors can, which is an awesome thing to accomplish. I would probably recommend, if you've got multiple products, focus, of course, if you're testing out, focus on your highest converting 3 products. I say 3 products mainly just because it gives you some flexibility of different advertising types. It also allows you to do some cross-marketing of your products, allows you to consume more real estate between organic search results and ads, so that you get a little bit more traction. You're not simply just waiting for that one product to take off. You are creating a bigger upsell, cross-sell. You're getting a higher order value out of your launch. So I'd recommend whatever your top 3 converting ones that are directly relevant to each other, that are related. That's going to help to establish your brand. Next thing is make sure that you do have a trademark for your brand, so that because Amazon, in order to get access to some of their features, probably 20% of the features that you want to have, it's going to be required that you have a legitimate trademark and valid UPC codes that are registered. So if you're shipping the product into their warehouse, this will give you a pass into some of the additional features. There's not an added cost for those features, but you definitely want some of those, what they call brand registered on Amazon. When it comes to price parity, Amazon is not your While you could use Amazon from a liquidation standpoint, I honestly, I wouldn't. I would just go in and say, okay, I'm going to charge equal or a higher price for the products that I sell on Amazon. If you are selling multiple channels, Amazon's going to pay attention to the pricing that you have. If you're selling on Walmart or Etsy or there's a number of other large e-commerce sites that you could potentially be selling on, but it's pretty fair that you could go out and sell at a higher price point on Amazon than what you're selling on your own site, so that you're not losing. In other words, the price difference compels your shoppers to stay with you on on your own D2C site. Again, this one I'll hammer all day long is push the differentiation through your messaging and your product listing content, your advertising, that kind of thing. When it comes to advertising, you want to, because if you have a higher end beauty brand, for instance, you want to be able to focus your ads to your specific audience. You're going to know your audience better than most brands on Amazon know their audience. Mostly because what I was talking about before is they came on to start a private label, 3P private label business, and they emulated success and they followed a course and this kind of stuff. They didn't come to market with a specialized brand for a specific target audience that has specific needs that you then specifically solve for. And if you, like I said before, if you focus your advertising, focus your messaging, focus your differentiation on who that specific target audience is and not trying to shotgun to the widest audience you can get on Amazon, you're going to lock in, you're going to be laser targeting into your target audience, and you're going to much more easily convert them compared to what your competitors can do. You can also use that in order to steal their customers, steal market share away, and ultimately continue to grow your brand off the backs of competitors that aren't putting in the work that you have. There's plenty, as I mentioned earlier, is that there are plenty of community advice and professional help. Obviously, we've got an agency with over 100 staff that is a lot of experience over at Canopy. That would be an example of professional help. Community advice would be certain channels. There's plenty of content that's out there when it comes on YouTube, for instance, or smaller courses. We used to sell a $2,000 course. You shouldn't be spending $2,000 for an Amazon course anymore. There's too much free content out there. Not that it's not good, but it's unnecessary. So that was the high level summary there.
That was all very helpful. Did you? So we got a lot of questions that came in.
Cool.
All right. So, and there was a lot. I wrote down some things that I was really surprised about, like Amazon has 37% of the US market.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. And I am curious about you. You had mentioned something about like the conversion rates in each niche. What's beauty traditionally? Do you know off the top of your head?
Well, so beauty can range. So you can have, depending on how exclusive it is. If you're simply just coming in with a, some kind of hyaluronic acid serum, for instance, right? That got really popular for a while on Amazon, and everybody and their friend was kicking these things out, and quality was, everybody claimed to have high quality, but most people who know that, like, okay, maybe not, maybe it's not. And so those brands that do a good job of converting their target audience while differentiating, standing out, obviously showcasing the fact that they are a premium line and their pricing reflects that, then, they're pulling in, I would say at least 30% conversion rate, probably closer to the 50-60% conversion rate for beauty.
Wow.
Or a premium brand.
Did you guys hear that? That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And so I call those Me Too products, the hyaluronic acid, the vitamin C, back in 2013 to 15. I think that's all I did. private labeled those products. But yeah, everybody here has a brand. I know Fatima didn't miss that. She got that comment. So let's hop in. We have a lot of questions.
Cool.
If you guys have a question, use the Q&A button, please, not just the chat. I'll try to get all the chats too. So Rosalind Goodwin and her amazing family, let's start with her family is amazing, but she and her daughter have a brand called Gabby Bows. It's a patented bow. Plus they have a hair care line.
Okay.
And I mean, like they get amazing press, like it's an amazing brand. Anyway, she said, did you say 25 to 30% margins are good?
Yeah, 25 to 30% margins is what I would recommend as a minimum to be on an e-commerce channel like Amazon, because you figure they're going to, with the fees and promotion of that product, they're probably going to consume 30% of that. So we've seen plenty of brands. I had one of my own brands when I first came on to Amazon that I had an 18% margin, and I was barely breaking even constantly. And that's just not a struggle you want to do. So if you haven't gotten to the point where you've developed your product in a way that you're getting at least 25% margin, then I would, your first priority is to go back and to look to see, okay, is there a way that I can get a couple more points out of my net margin? Now, that margin is assuming that's typically a pre-tax margin. But if you can probably go back and you can reverse engineer, and you probably already know why it's, below that, or why it's not as high as you want it to be. It's easy to look at things as far as like, material costs or inbound shipping was extremely high this past year, or the source of materials have dramatically increased, and inflation and all kinds of things, right? Yes, I definitely understand that, because everybody's experiencing the same kind of problems. That's where you see where the average price of products has risen across the board, retail, e-commerce, it doesn't matter. But labor is one of those things where it is, usually we find some efficiencies in things like automation, but I find it's interesting to see where a company or a brand owner will go in and they'll spend all weekend long looking through their transactions for their credit card transactions and saying like, what was this $9 spent on? And what was this $15 spent on and $100 spent on? And try to eliminate those, but spend the entire weekend doing it, rather than spending just a few hours trying to say like, okay, is there a way that I can structure my business slightly differently? Or can I change my process? Or can I automate part of my process? Or can I have, do I really need this? You can probably break it down so that each product or each ingredient, even there's a cost and there's a return on that investment. Is that an absolute must to have that particular product? Most of the time, this is something I advise on Amazon all the time, is you're going to have your hero product, the one that you sell the most. You may have a sidekick product that's selling at least 10% of, a secondary product that sells well. But the bigger your catalog get, the more variety of products that you have, the more likely you're going to have products that either convert really well and have the best combination of high net margin and high conversion. And you're going to have some that you've continued to source and to keep in there. It's like, well, because people want it, but frankly, you're breaking even and it's dragging down the rest of your brand. And it's causing you to sleep less, as a result. So sometimes somebody just taking a step back and saying, do I really need to reorder this particular product, or is it time to retire it? A lot of times that solves some problems. You don't want to do it because you put so much work into bringing it to market and you have people who buy it periodically. But what is one of the things that I try to teach people, including my own clients at the agency, is instead of focusing on things like how much total sales, the ego metrics, forget about the ego metrics. How many total sales, how many visitors do I have? Am I ranked number one on Google for this search term? it doesn't matter unless you are first taking a look at what is the net profit contribution of each of your products to your overall brand. That's going to create your brand health. And so if you've got multiple products, the bigger opportunity is for you to eliminate products. It's counterintuitive, and it's not going to feel good because you're getting rid of, it's like, oh, this is the first product that I brought to market. Well,
gotta move
you
forward.
gotta evolve. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to report. That's interesting. Roz put in there, she was clarifying. I'm sorry, I just saw this. She said clarifying 25 to 30% margin using the Amazon calculator.
Well, I'm not familiar with the Amazon calculator, so.
I don't know. A lot of people here have done like the, I think the Black Amazon Accelerator. Is that right? You guys put in the chat, let me know. So I'm not familiar with that Amazon calculator either. All right, so Maya asked 2 questions. Just going back, Ross said Amazon has a margin calculator.
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware that they have that there. I don't ever use it because I simply just do the calculations myself. I don't rely on Amazon to tell me anything.
Okay.
I mean, I pull the reports that they can provide, whatever data they can provide, but I make my own interpretation on those. I do my own calculations. So that's kind of where maybe it's just kind of a different philosophy that may work just fine. But generally you're looking at what is your net margin of your product as far as like sourcing your product, getting and logistics of getting it into, like, say, a warehouse, whether it's your own 3PL or your own. Well, let's put it this way. What's the total cost of sourcing your product, packaging, getting it into the warehouses, getting it shipped to the customer? You should be up in at least 25-30% because as far as your net margin, because when you start taking away things like promotion, advertisement, you start taking away fees for fulfillment and advertising on the platform, just being on the platform itself for selling your product, and you start taking away taxes, you've got to, if you start out too low, you're going to end up with nothing. I've seen some brands that do $20 million a year and they're operating on a 3% net profit margin, and they're wondering why they're struggling so bad. But they sell $20 million a year, I mean, like, cool.
Right. Right. But it's not real money. It's not real money. It's a good point. All right, let's get through some of these questions. If you guys have more questions, please put them in the Q&A. So I'm going to go with Maya. She put in 3 questions. I'm going to start with this one. What would you suggest the number of items SKUs to be sent into Amazon warehouse for a new premium brand? Just hundreds of items to test first. Now, I want to clarify, Maya's brand is a mask, and it's premium. I think you sell it for like 125. It's beautiful. It's like Korean technology. It's definitely unique.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not as concerned about the price point as far as whether it would work on Amazon, because I've seen a wide range. My recommendation is never to put things on sale or on discount. I'm always looking for, like, how do I stand out? How do I stand out from my competition so that I can increase the price, not reduce it? But as far as the number of products go, I was suggesting, like, starting out with at least 3, just as a proof of concept. Ideally, it is your top converting. It's not uncommon for you to, if you've got a large catalog, if you've got hundreds of items, for instance, we would typically say, like, don't do more than, don't start out with more than 5% of your top sellers. Now, as far as number of units, so that'd be like quantity of SKUs, different product variations. I would say if you've got 3, do 3. If you've got more, pick your best 3, your highest converting 3. Because then that way you kind of proof of concept on the Amazon sales channel or any sales channel to see, like, hey, these are my best products. I already know how they perform because I already know all the key metrics. And therefore I want to compare how profitable, how much sales, how much visibility and market share can I get on Amazon just from this, and then I'll worry about expanding from there. If you're talking about as far as the number of units, that if you were to use Amazon warehouse to fulfill, they're usually going to want at least a couple hundred units. I would probably maybe do 500 units, so that, because Amazon's going to distribute it throughout the country to different warehouses, and instead of having What you don't want is you don't want 500 units in one warehouse in Southern California, and you've got somebody in New York who says, oh, I can get this in a week. Nah, I'll find something else. You want to have something, like, oh, I'm going to get it from 2 days shipping because that it's in a Pennsylvania warehouse. You want it distributed. So typically, if you've got, if you have the inventory and then you can ship it in, that's separate from whatever warehousing and shipping, fulfillment that you're doing now. If you can put in, 500 to 1,000 units, that's probably the way I would go.
That's helpful. It's helpful. So price isn't the issue. It's just 500 to 1,000. Hope that's helpful, Maya. Let's answer her other questions. She said, I'll just say, as monthly minimum required. Well, now let's start this. Is FBA fee included shipping fee fulfilled by Amazon Prime more efficient and cheaper than self-fulfilled by brand?
I would say so. The challenge with 3PL warehousing, or if you're did like I did back in the day, where I had filled up 3/4 of my living room and my wife hated me, and I was packing and shipping from my own living room. Don't do that. Oh God, that's painful. In order to try to match, because frankly, Amazon has negotiated such deep discounts with major distribution channels, UPS, FedEx, their own distribution fleet, delivery fleet, for initial shipping. I'll clarify that. It's usually, they can usually get a better deal than you can when it comes to shipping. And so usually that forces an individual who ships out on their own to ship a product through something like a US Postal Service. US Postal Service might get you the pricing that you want, but there's a much higher risk of the product being lost, being delayed, taking longer than something like a FedEx or a direct warehouse delivery service. So there's the setup. There are, as with working with any kind of third party, working with Amazon FBA warehouses can be challenging at times. Sometimes you ship something in and it sits there on their dock for 2 weeks while they get enough people together to check it in. That can be frustrating, especially during peak season. Sometimes they say, hey, you know what, you're not moving your product fast enough. We're going to ship you back your product from all these different warehouses, and they put it in a poly bag and they ship it back, and your packaging, gets, smashed in the process. I just had that with one of my products where it just wasn't moving fast enough. And my front door got loaded up with, Amazon bags and boxes from all around the country for 2 weeks. That does happen if it moves too slowly. But I would say that it is certainly worth a try. There's plenty of brands who do both. In other words, they put in a couple hundred units into an Amazon FBA warehouse, and then they feed that as needed. Like, cool, I just sold out. I'm getting low at the Amazon warehouses. I'm going to ship more in, but I always have my fulfillment by merchant backup of my own 3PL warehouse or my own, living room, wherever the case is, where I can fulfill if I happen to run out of stock, or if my check-in gets delayed at an Amazon warehouse, or things are being moved across country and there's a delay, or frankly, it's just not moving fast enough. Having both in place as a solution is definitely recommended.
Helpful. That was helpful. Okay.
I don't know if that actually answered the fee part of it, but
no, she said, is FBA fee included shipping fee?
In general, I would say that the FBA fee is probably going to be about the same, if not a little bit less than what you could probably negotiate from your shipping. Unless you're a high volume shipper and you've negotiated a special rate with, like, say, FedEx, then you could probably match the speed, the tracking as far as the reliability, as well as, maybe a little bit higher cost. But if you have a premium line and you want to make sure that it is shipped a very specific way, you may have to have more control by having your own, shipment logistics provider like a FedEx or something.
So Maya clarified, she said, Amazon marketing support person told me the FBA fee is $4 a unit and that included shipping fee, which is so competitive to our own fulfillment. So I wanted to double check to see if that's true.
Yeah, and it's going to vary depending on the size of the product, you know, how much bulk it has, how heavy it is, all these kind of things, right? So $4, I think, is probably a pretty average one. Generally, I take a grain of salt with anything that I hear from any Amazon rep. They do have a reputation. I didn't put it in the slide, but they do have a reputation of having not as well of a trained support staff. So sometimes you have to ask 2 or 3 different support reps in order to finally get the answer that that is accurate. So
I feel like
don't
people
rely on them for all the answers, in other words.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard that a lot from people going through dealing with Amazon. They're just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, in
Okay.
general, I try to avoid support unless I absolutely need them to do something.
Wow.
And then there's a certain way that I speak with them. Fortunately, with Canopy, for instance, we have, I think what they call it, level 7 support, which is bigger than a brand. So level 7 support staff, they're the ones who are the supervisors of the brand account managers. And so a large enough brand, once they have enough sales, they'll get an assigned account manager and they can usually, you know, answer questions or solve problems. And so, but because of the volume that we do for our clients, we're one step up from that, which is kind of cool. That's even us, we can't solve every problem, but there's a lot of things that we've learned how to solve.
That's awesome, though. That's very awesome. All right, let me, Maya's next question was, what is the monthly minimum required ad budget to be visible on Amazon for one brand and one product?
Here's what I'll tell you from a launch standpoint. Usually what I recommend is there's a couple different ways that you can do this, but you can do these calculations based off of what your, you know, retail selling price is. And you can say, okay, 30% of the retail selling. So one model is 30% of the retail selling price of your product times how many units that you're expecting to move during launch. Let's say you say, I want to move 1,000 units and I've got a $100 product. You're probably looking at 30 times 1,000 for, you know, for all your promotional costs. That can get really expensive really fast, you know, depending on if that's how many units you're trying to move 1,000 units in a month of a $100 product. Usually I go a little more conservative on that because part of my recommendation is to be very, I had it in my own slide, is to get very intentional, very focused with your advertising. Kind of what I was mentioning before when it comes to, you may have a bunch of products, but some of those products that you love and you don't want to let go, they're pulling your average brand profitability down. And they're not a dead weight, but they're certainly hooking into the ground and they're slowing you down. So the same thing happens with products sold on Amazon. There's, you know, different advertising you can do. There's going to be some types of ad types and ad campaigns and targets. A target is like, you know, a search term that somebody uses to shop on Amazon. A product target would be you've identified a competitor or related product that you want to run an ad on to try to pull their customer over to you. So there's different types of targets. So target, campaigns, ad types, products, each one of those has an opportunity to be further focused, as in like, I'm going to choose not to run that campaign or that target or that product because it doesn't have the margin or the conversion rate in order to justify doing that any longer. And so making sure it's not simply just, oh, I'm just going to spend all kinds of money on advertising for all of my products everywhere is a bad approach. So to circle this back around, the second method of calculating a launch promotion budget on Amazon is I usually say, based off the number of units that you're selling, how much did it cost you to source that product? In other words, manufacture that product, packaging, and get it to whatever warehouse you're distributing it from. What was that total cost for the number of units that you want to move in that first month, 2 months? And that is your ad budget. Now that may be a lot smaller because that's not based off the retail price. That may be based off of that's a cost basis calculation. So let's say it costs you $7 per unit and you're going to move you want to move 1,000 units in a month, then all of a sudden you got a $7,000 budget instead of the $30,000 budget I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, that's kind of the rule of thumb. I sell services is like when you're doing a launch campaign, like spend the amount of a total cost of your program.
Yeah.
Kind of similar. It's interesting.
You can do that.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's very similar. Okay, so there's some great questions. I want to just pull this one in. Dr. LaFara asked, how do you keep your prices competitive on Amazon when competitors have very cheap products?
Yeah, you don't play in the same game. Don't do an Apple. You've got to make sure that you are not being compared to them. So this is something you're probably already doing. You probably already know, is especially if you've got any kind of premium or exclusivity or any kind of differentiation in your product and your brand. And I can talk a little bit about that as far as on the brand side as well. But on the product side, it's funny how many brand owners don't really know what makes their product different. In other words, there's two ways of looking at this. I spent money to ensure that I have the right ingredient or the right widget or whatever the case is about the product. When I manufactured it, I spent extra money in order to get this benefit, right? And I'm gonna you're already probably telling your consumers this product does this, unlike most of the competitors out there. But you can only get it through us. There's some exclusivity of your product. That's what you want to build upon. What's funny is that, and this happens a lot, pretty much in every coaching or consulting I'll do with brands within the agency, is most brands have spent so much time developing, researching, talking to manufacturers, that they've gotten so used to the terminology and the ingredient list and everything. And they say it's like, oh, it's got this ingredient list and it's got, 17,000 nanoparticles per whatever. And consumers are like, what does that mean to me? Like, what is this industry acronym? What is, they're out there and they're showing acronyms and they're showing it's got this ingredient and that ingredient. It's like, you know what, unless I was, watching Dr. Oz, well, not the politician, but the, watching some show where somebody was educating me on that, then I might be educated, but assume that your consumer is not educated. So you've got to come in and say, not assume that they know what this ingredient does for them. Yeah, you can have it listed on your product listing, but that ingredient put in this kind of formulation that creates some specific benefit that the shopper may or may not know that they want. But if you're pointing out to them, it looks like you're the only product that has it, because your competitors are doing the same thing where they're just assuming that if they just list out, here's the ingredient list, you figure it out, that is enough. And it's not. Because unless they're searching for a specific ingredient, because they already educated themselves on it, then they might find the product. But it's up to you to make sure that you're educating your consumer very succinctly, of ultimately, here's the benefit that you want. Like, my product solves your pain. It creates this benefit for you. Oh, and by the way, here are the features, ingredients, formulation, whatever, that create that benefit for you. You've got to lead with the benefit. That's how you stand out. That's how you make it so that they're not comparison. You should not be in the game of comparison shopping. They should be looking at your product and being able to like, wow, this product clearly has something unique about it, has some unique benefits. Whether or not those benefits I'm actually, I'm passionate about enough in order to convert, well, that's a decision. But you're not allowing yourself to get trapped to say, it's like, well, your product and your brand are, your products are just like 50 other products on Amazon. I'm going to go with the cheaper one. You've lost the battle because you aligned with competitors that can go cheaper than you, rather than separate yourself out and say, you know what, I'm $20, I'm $100 more expensive than these others. And people are going to come in and say like, well, why is that? It's like, oh, yeah, I want that. Oh, I want that. I want that. After a while, it's obvious that you're solving their pains, you're providing them benefits that they can't get elsewhere. Now, the reason I kind of emphasize that enough, you can probably tell I'm a little bit passionate about this particular topic, but because most brands, they've gotten so used to the industry terminology, they forget to point out not just what the benefits are, but what is unique about their product. And they make a very, very common mistake is they say, well, all of my competitors have that same ingredient, therefore they have the same benefit, so I'm not different. But how many of your competitors pointed out that benefit to the consumer? I can guarantee you it's very minimal, which makes it look like your product is only one of few that actually even has that benefit, even though everybody in your whole niche may have the same benefit. If you're the only one who points it out, you're the one that stands above the crowd.
That was helpful. Did you guys get that? Put in the comments, let me know if you guys got that. That was really important. And everybody here should know, but I always remind them, people search for beauty products based off of their problems.
Yeah.
You know, I want to have longer hairs, less wrinkles, whatever it is. But I love that. Dr. LaFerra said definitely got that. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome.
I was gonna ask, put in one more thing on this, is that it's what I was mentioning as far as brand, I kind of hinted to like the brand differentiation. Brand differentiation is more about you know, you've got the backstory as far as like why we created the product and that kind of stuff. And if you get too long in that story, people check out. They don't have that kind of attention span anymore. This is a TikTok video kind of audience anymore, right? It's like, you got 15 seconds to entertain me, otherwise I'm gone. And so don't give them a big long story. And frankly, the fact that you donate 5% of your proceeds to Save the Pet Foundation, they could give a rat's ass. They don't care. You know, that's like cool. That's cool for you. What's in it for me? Right. If you're not answering the question again and again and again, what's in it for me? You've lost them.
Wow. That was amazing. I heard that we're in the tech education entertainment age is what it is.
Yeah. Well, it's
tech entertain. I don't know. It was a weird word. I had never heard it. Somebody made it up. I was like,
Yeah, we're building self-driving cars so that people don't, so that people can just sit in their car and get entertained rather than have to drive.
Right. Yeah, that's where we are now. All right, so we're kind of running out of time, but I want to talk about, there was multiple questions about how do you get reviews for your brand when you're just getting started?
Very good. That's a very good one. So Amazon, this one is a difficult one because Amazon has come down so hard because of anytime you've got a lot of money. There are brands out there that sell $500 worth of product a month, right? There's products out there that sell $5 million of product a month. Some of those are our clients. So you can move a huge amount of volume at a high price point, have a high conversion rate, you know, all the holy grail kind of stuff you want to get to, if you put in the work to differentiate. I may not have mentioned that before, but differentiate. But as far as reviews go, is it because there's so much money on a platform like Amazon, is you're always going to get people who want to game the system, who get desperate, who try to hack the system, try to take shortcuts. And one of those, of course, is, you know, like, oh, if everybody trusts these reviews, if a lot of people who shop on Amazon trust reviews, then I want to make sure that I've got a whole bunch of glowing reviews. There's been a huge amount of manipulation over the years of those reviews and how you get those. So Amazon has been forced, because of public scrutiny, and also because, you know, they just finally realized themselves they had to do it. They had to put in a number of systems in order to police that and to detect when fake reviews were put in place. So much so that you know, they kind of have like a social scoring system in place where they are monitoring the behavior and the IP address and the social media presence, and how whether or not you're connected to your sister, brother on social media, to anybody that leaves a review. So they look for certain patterns of people who get paid for reviews, or only leave certain types of reviews, use only kind of certain terminology. And especially if they are loosely connected through, they're in a Facebook group of user reviews of other people who do this for a living. You are more likely, it's gotten to the point now where it's a high risk of violation in order to try to incentivize any kind of a review for a product on Amazon. So it comes back to what you asked. What do you do? What do you do about it? Amazon has Amazon Vine program. That's a program where you can pay for a collection of reviews when you first launch a product. That can go either way. You don't have control as far as whether or not somebody comes in and says, it's kind of like if you invite 10 people into your restaurant, 10 critics to come into your restaurant, 4 of them are not going to like the food that you serve. That's a risk, right? And so you may get, 4 and 5 star reviews. You might get somebody who says like, this came broken, it sucks. That's a risk. So you can pay for those. Generally, what I would recommend is leveraging what you've already built. And that is, if you've already built any kind of a social media following, any kind of an email list to your audience through your D2C site, you have a huge, substantial, yes, that's redundant, advantage over the 3PL private label sellers who are just launching on Amazon, who didn't take the time to build an audience. So if you have any kind of an audience, or if you are friends with influencers, don't pay for influencers. First and foremost, that's kind of a general rule that I go by. It is much easier to find, first and foremost, if you have your own list, get them to buy your latest product off of Amazon, just in order to bump it for a while. You don't need to do that long term, just initially, so that you get a little bit of social proof going in. Social proof is going to be relative to your competition. Usually it used to be said like you need at least 10 reviews. Well, nobody wants to be the first or the second or the third person who bought a product and then find out, hey, this thing sucks, and I should have gone for a product that had more reviews, more public opinion, if you will. So if you can pull in 20, 30, 50 reviews based off of people that you already have a conversation with, people who are current customers, for instance, or past customers, or somebody who's on your marketing list that you can just email and say, hey, you know what, we're launching this new program. We'd love your support. Can you come out this one time on Amazon, and then your next purchase, we're going to give you a big discount if you buy it directly from our own site. So you pull them back, right? You incentivize them through cross sells, upsells to pull them back over to your site. And you don't have to do it across your entire list. You can just do a portion and just kind of test it out, just for the purpose of a product launch on Amazon, just to get that social proof. Yes, you can use Amazon Vine to get 5, 10 reviews in the first month or two. The higher the price point, or the more specialized the product, the longer it'll take to get those Vine reviews. I sold a medical product, and it took me probably 3 months in order to get 10 reviews through Vine. The other one, of course, is if you got any kind of a social media following. That's another kind of similar kind of way. It's like you've got your own audience, you've got your own list, you've got your own social media following. If you can reach out to any influencers are a good one, but I would focus in on the micro influencers, those that typically have that are smaller than Melody, that have maybe 1,000 or a couple of thousand followers. That kind of micro influencer, they generally are happy to do it for free. They're not getting to the point where it's like, yeah, I get paid to do this. And so you can build up that kind of audience where they can promote it to their audience, and you can say, hey, come out and buy it on Amazon. Those are some common methods. I would avoid having friends and family, especially anybody who's connected to you on social media, connected to you by address, by phone number, by IP address. Amazon tracks all of that and connects it, and will simply just remove the review if they think there's any kind of connection where they think you know that person.
That's awesome. I really love the strategy of the email list and like sending them there and then giving them a discount. I thought that was
And I would think
great.
that most people in this group probably already have that email list.
They do.
And that's probably a core thing that you teach, because that's where you get your cross-sell, upsell. Anytime that you need to pull the trigger in order to pay rent, that you can blast that email, you know?
Right, exactly. Yeah. So that's actually a really good strategy. I really like that idea.
That's a huge advantage that the typical seller on Amazon does not have. So leverage that.
Yeah. I think that's something you guys need to be aware of. I know we're running late, you guys, but I think that's something you guys need to be aware of, is that a lot of people selling on Amazon literally just put a product on Amazon and they're just like everybody private label. Whereas you guys have a brand, an email list, audience, like something very unique. So you're really going back to the idea of like competing. You're really in a category of one, really, until someone knocks you off, which is another conversation.
And don't be afraid to pivot. I've had people who've gotten frustrated because they were the first one in a product category. They brought the product to Amazon in the first place, and yep, somebody knocked them off. And so then they get irritated, they get frustrated because, hey, they're copying me. And my recommendation every time is, look, you're the innovator. Pivot, innovate again, show them that why you stand out from the crowd, why you are the innovator, because you have the ability to, they have the ability to emulate, you have the ability to innovate. That's a much better advantage than simply just being able to copy.
So smart. Y'all write that one down too. I love that one. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna try to zoom.
No?
Yeah, that one was good. That was good. It's like, just do it again. They can't do it. Yeah. It's true.
But I mean, don't be surprised. I mean, like on any platform that you're on, don't be surprised if somebody, copies you, and you've got to make some kind of adjustment every 6 months. If you know that that's going to happen, then you can continue. Fashion designers do that all the time, where it's like, you've only got one season, you've got to come out with a whole new collection, right? And so same thing with your product line. That may require a repackaging, a relabeling, updating to say, hey, this product's improved now. Anything that you can do in order to keep on evolving that, so that so competitors are constantly chasing you rather than taking your market share.
I love that. All right. So Lita and her husband have a skincare line, and they want to launch a secondary line mid-2023, pricing from $15 to $35 in wellness. So she's thinking of starting it as an e-commerce private website where we could pull some of our current customers from our primary line and introduce them to the wellness essentials. Question. We're planning to build an Amazon store with 2 or 3 products out of 10 from our secondary line. Is there a set of products that you would recommend to come out the gate with? Products will range from body skin products to powders that go into the coffee or drinks. Sounds cool.
So, I mean, there's plenty of market research that you can do as far as like, okay, what are the popular search terms on Amazon? There's Amazon publishes like, hey, here's the top million searched phrases on Amazon for the last week, last month, last quarter, that kind of stuff. You can look to see how much competition is selling a product like yours. It's going to go back to, let me introduce a new concept here, differentiation. So if you are able to differentiate your product, even if you got a $15, $30 product, what I was talking about before, especially in the lower price points, like a $15 to $30 product, is if you got a lot of competitors who have a similar product or exactly the same product, then remember is they're more likely to make that fatal error of not pointing out benefits to the shopper simply because, well, all my competition shares the same benefit. The reality, like I said, is that if you and maybe one other competitor points out, a couple of benefits that everybody shares, yeah, are they going to emulate that, within 6 months? That is true. But you've got 6 months lead time where you're now selling a whole bunch of product to their customers because all of a sudden you're coming on a product that looks different, even though it's exactly the same thing as everybody else's. but it appears to be special. It appears to be different than everybody else. And you're not fabricating anything. You're simply just pointing out things that your competitors failed to point out that have value to your target audience. And so it's more about, I would look at, does the product I'm bringing to market, is there a place for me to differentiate and to stand out from the crowd of the niche that I'm going to be selling into? Then in that case, that's the product you bring to market, because you know how to stand out from your competitors. And so there's no apples and oranges. It's like, well, that's the only product that I even, does what I wanted to do.
That's helpful. That's helpful. Back to the benefits, guys. So, okay, the last three questions are all about the same. So they're all around software. So Lita asks, what do you think of the Amazon Product Finder software that finds the most popular and search sold products niche finders? Is it worth it, or is everyone using that?
Yeah, the problem with most tools, everybody's using it.
So would that include Jungle Scout too, as well?
Yeah, I mean, I use Seller Tools, I use Helium 10, I use Jungle Scout, we've got our own proprietary software that we've built in-house for a number of things. I'm a fan of Brandon Young's Data Dive. I'm a fan of Keyword Dominator. These are things where things like Data Dive and Keyword Dominator, those are unique tools that allow you to see where are the holes, the pockets within your niche where competitors have failed or overlooked individual search terms, that you can then scoop in and say, like, I'm going to optimize my product listing on these search terms that most of my competitors missed, and I'm going to gain some ranking and some sales right out of the gate. And then I'm going to start adding on these other terms that are more competitive as I build up my reputation and start building out sales and taking over market share. But when I first slip in, it's less about using a tool to find a product and more about seeing what are the top million. If you're on Amazon and you're brand registered, it's what they call brand analytics. It's the search term analyzer of brand analytics feature. If you're familiar with that in your own Seller Central account, that's going to give you the top million terms, of the week, of the month, of the quarter. And you can go through there and you can spend, the next 3 weeks just going through there and looking for patterns. I can guarantee you that I've killed, I've got both Mac and Windows machines, and I can guarantee you trying to do an Excel pivot table on a Mac for 1 million rows of data will crash your Mac unless you've got an M1. But it can be done, but yeah. So in other words, there's a lot of research. I would focus more on what's in demand. In other words, what are people searching for? And then I would look to see where can I find a pocket within that niche. If I have where I can bring to market a product that is going to take advantage of some gaps in the marketplace off of those top 1 million search terms on Amazon. That's how I start all of my product research, because I'm not simply just saying, oh, I have this product. Now, how do I fit it into the system? How do I differentiate? I would rather say, like, what are people hungry for? What are people searching for? Let me solve for that. And then I'm going to filter that down to, okay, there's 20,000 competitors who are already solving for that. Let me go for the one that is, there's 500 competitors who are solving for that on Amazon. And then I differentiate from those 500 rather than trying to compete against 20,000.
That's smart.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to you not necessarily being brand loyal or not product loyal, maybe just kind of looking for opportunities in some ways. Yeah. Which definitely is a different process that Amazon sellers have.
No, that is true. And that's usually their weak point too. That's one of the reasons why they get trapped into this, where they're opportunity seekers and they source a product they may not truly they're not passionate about. They're not that familiar with it, and therefore they don't know even what the benefits are. They don't know who their target audience is, and they certainly don't know how to separate their product from the competition with a what's in it for me kind of approach. And so because that's so common among the private label 3P sellers who are opportunity seekers, if you are if you have your own product line, you have a unique advantage that you crafted, that you sourced, that you cared about in order to bring it to market, and you've got a target audience that's passionate about it. You have a significant advantage on a platform like Amazon because of the laziness of who's selling around you.
I call them Amazon hoppers. I used to have this client. He would just hit me up every week. Hey, I'm looking for this one next. I'm looking for that one next. He wouldn't stay long enough in one category. All right. So last question, and then we can wrap because this goes into closing is, what are some of the books or people that you mentioned that you like learning from?
So there's people like, so there's one of the channels, I'll just say say YouTube channel. You can search for Adam Heist, as in he's got a podcast called The Heist, as in Heist. That's not his last name, but it's Adam Runquist, but Adam Heist is what his channel name is. He puts out a whole bunch of great quality content, and he is an example of somebody who has done it, right? So he'd probably be my first go-to. The second go-to would probably be Brandon Young. He's with Seller Systems. He's actually the creator of one of the tools that I talked about called Data Dive. Brandon Young also puts out a huge amount of educational content based off of the fact that he's very experienced as a seller on Amazon. I would say that he's probably a little more dry than Adam as far as the delivery, but he's very smart in what he does. He also has a paid course that you could purchase as well, and I would definitely go with him. The third one would probably be somebody like Kevin King. Kevin King's course has now been bought up, and I think is included as part of like the Helium 10 software collection. So you can, if you already have a Helium 10, I don't know if it's Diamond, Platinum, whatever account it is, you may already have access to Kevin King's training through Helium 10. But those are the kind of the sequence I would go with: Adam Runquist, Brandon Young, Kevin King, in that order. Oh, you're muted.
I was like, that's helpful. Okay. All right. So if people, I know no hard pitch, y'all, but if people want to reach out, how do they connect with you guys?
Come to my seminar. No, I'm kidding.
Pay me $3,000 right now.
You can just cash at me, no, actually just, so one of the things that, so if you go out to canopymanagement.com, you can simply just say, hey, you know what, get a free evaluation or have a conversation or whatever the button says. What all that does is it puts you in touch with our team. We'll ask some questions. We'll get on an initial call with you and say, look, okay, where are you at? Where do you want to be? Based off of what we heard so far, we may be able to help. Let's go ahead and dig in deeper, do a full analysis for you. We're not going to charge you for it, but that's part of our sales process anyway. First of all, if you qualify to work with our organization, which generally I will say is that you're either doing at least, it used to be, I think it's probably still in that same range. You're doing a minimum of $30,000 a month in product sales, either on Amazon or off Amazon, then you probably definitely want to have, you probably qualify to work with us. At that point, we would turn it over to our data team in order to do essentially a market analysis. And we're going to tear apart everything as far as, competitive positioning, listing optimization, advertising setup and effectiveness. So it goes into a lot more detail in each one of those. We essentially come back and we schedule a follow-up call, what we call what do they call it? They keep on changing the acronym on me. So it's like a growth potential analysis. And we would come back and say, here's all the things you're doing right. Here's all the things you're doing wrong. Here's where you could be doing better. And if you want our help, here's the price tag. And that's it. It's not a hard pitch. In fact, we're not pitching at all, really, because we could either say, you know what, you don't need us. And that's something we say periodically is, you don't need us. Take our advice, go put it in place, you're close enough. More than likely, you know, but we also will tell you, it's like, here's what we can do, here's what we think we can get you to if we do work with us. If our pricing model matches up with your model, with what you want to accomplish and the net margin, cool, let's work together. I know our team, I know we crush it. We've got some of the leading metrics in the industry, so we're very confident in what our capabilities are. But that's a conversation you could easily just get. The CEO hates it when I say this, but that's a good way, if you qualify, to get a free analysis and then walk away with that information and say, cool, thanks.
Why does Brian hate that? I'm just curious.
Well, because I should be saying it's like, no, you need to work with us, you know, like,
Yeah.
he's focused on the bottom line. And I'm more focused on like, how can I help you? You know,
Yeah.
did I give you enough to walk away with here so you can actually put something in place yourself? But ultimately, you know, an agency is in the business of actually making money also, but we do it because we make our clients money. So we know that when we hit the ground running for any of our clients, that we're going to do well by them. They're going to be ecstatic by the results. But, you know, there's many reasons why people just say, like, you know what, I don't want to move forward. Okay.
So I don't know if this is kosher, but can I show them, like you did one for my client, one of my clients, can I show them the call?
Yeah, you probably could.
It was pretty awesome. Anyways, nonetheless,
Don't
if you
show the
don't want to do this,
pricing, but
no, not the pricing,
because the
but just
pricing varies depending on what's needed.
yeah, not the pricing, but
Oh,
the data that they give you back, you guys, just on your like initial phone call is so ridiculous. I was like, oh, I get that.
yeah, it's kind of a common statement. It's like, why do you know that? Like,
It's
you know this aspect of my business
crazy.
better than I do. It's like, yeah,
Oh my gosh, I was shocked when I saw that. I was just like, that's just in their proposal.
yeah. It takes about, I would say probably on average, it takes about 8 hours to put together one of those proposals. We don't get
Wow.
paid for
Yeah.
it. That's
No, y'all
just our
don't get
cost of
paid
doing
for it.
business.
Yeah. That's just your cost. So, so if you guys got scared off by you have to be doing 30,000, I would still reach out, see if there's a fit. If Amazon is a platform you want to be on, they're pretty honest with what they're going to tell you from the beginning, actually. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. Was this helpful for everybody? Normally our chat is like more interactive. So I'm like,
Right.
oh, what are y'all doing?
Everybody's burnt out from the election.
No. Put in the chat. Let us know if this was helpful and what your biggest takeaway. And then Canopy team, is there a link that they are supposed to connect with you guys on so I can
No,
have
not
that?
really. Like I
Not
said,
really.
you know,
Okay.
that's how bad of a pitcher I am. So I would just say canopymanagement.com. I can put it into the chat.
Yeah, I think you're the only one that can do everyone. I can't. It just says host and panelist. All right.
Canopy.
I'm glad this was helpful. Yeah, so eye-opening, right? Okay, thank you. I mean, there were so many great takeaways. I hope you guys grabbed a whole bunch of them. And I think, you know, the biggest takeaway that I got for you guys is that having your own proprietary brand actually puts you at an advantage.
Yeah, no question. No question. Yeah. There's yeah, you know, kind of like what I was just discussing before, is like, yeah, there's some common fears of being on any kind of channel like Amazon. There's you know, every single one of those there you can mitigate your risk on, but the advantages that you have over your competitors and what you already know, most of you probably don't even realize how big of a competitor you have just based off of the passion that you put into developing your own product line off of Amazon, because you've had to fight for things that it's not as hard on Amazon. Yes, you've got a lot more competition, but if you truly go in with the mindset where I'm not simply just bringing a Me Too product to market, and I actually have something that's special and worth it, then you're gonna stand out, and you're gonna gain new markets. And one of the things actually I was going to mention too is, I forgot to mention this, is When it comes to advertising, we absolutely recognize the difference between cannibalizing sales from off Amazon versus developing a new to brand audience. And so part of what we do from an advertising standpoint at Canopy is we separate branded keywords advertising versus non-branded. In other words, more the generic terms, as well as competitor attack kind of ads. We're not actually attacking them. It's just more of a case of we're just stealing their customers. But we absolutely recognize that the biggest priority, the biggest win that we can do for a traditionally non-Amazon brand is to bring them new customers without cannibalizing their own customers who are already searching. So you use the branded terms in order to defend your real estate on Amazon, but you focus heavily on going head to head with a better product, and increasing the conversion rate and the distinction of that product, the differentiation, in order to naturally steal customers away off of terms that are highly searched, but are not branded. In other words, they're not your customers already.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, guys. So Canopy Management, Brian, thank you so much for your time tonight. We will be sending out the replay along with their contact information. So if you guys want to connect with them, please do. So are you reading the chat, Brian, at all?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, great. There's so many great comments on here. So yes, thank you guys so much. And
Cool.
If you guys need anything, just tag me in the group. I can get you in contact with them as well. So ladies and Giselle, I don't want you guys to disqualify yourself, because that's what women do. We say, oh, we're not at this mark, when a lot of you guys have amazing brands. So go out there and
just that you're not there yet, and that's okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are close, and I already saw them say, oh, we're not there. So erase that number. Oh, I know how we are. If you guys are ready, this is why we brought them in, is because Amazon is an untouched market for a lot of you guys, and it's something we need to get into.
Yeah. Well, and because of the relationship that you and I have, Melody, is I'll offer this is that, even if this video is being seen as a replay, if we get enough questions, I would definitely, I'll step up and come back just to answer, just field questions.
That would be amazing.
Glad to do that for you.
That would be amazing. All right. Thank you. All right, Brian, thank you so much for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I have a good time with this, as you can see. So
yeah, you love it. You're so smart. It's exciting. All right, guys. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll be sending out the replay tomorrow, and along with their contacts. So I want you guys to come back in the group. Let me know your biggest takeaways so we can keep chatting about this, because it's the area I want you guys all to go into. So have a great night, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye.